Hello, and welcome back to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we will be reading Numbers chapter 19. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord hath commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring thee a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came yoke. And ye shall give her unto Eleazar the priest, that he may bring her forth without the camp, and one shall slay her before his face. And Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger, and sprinkle of her blood directly before the tabernacle of the congregation 7 times. And one shall burn the heifer in his sight, her skin, and her flesh, and her blood, with her dung shall he burn. And the priest shall take cedar wood, and hyssop, and scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer. And the priest shall wash his clothes, and he shall bathe his flesh in water, and afterward he shall come into the camp. And the priest shall be unclean until the even. And he that burneth her shall wash his clothes in water, and bathe his flesh in water, and shall be unclean until the even. And a man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and lay them up without the camp in a clean place, and it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for a water of separation. It is a purification for sin. And he that garnereth the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. And it shall be unto the children of Israel, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among them, for a statute forever. He that toucheth the dead body of any man shall be unclean for 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he purify not himself the 3rd day, then the 7th day he shall not be clean. Whosoever toucheth the dead body of any man that is dead, and purifieth not himself, defileth the tabernacle of the Lord. And that soul shall be cut off from Israel, because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him. He shall be unclean, his uncleanness is yet upon him. This is the law, when a man dieth in a tent. All that come into the tent, and all that is in the tent, shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel which hath no covering bound upon it is unclean. And whosoever toucheth one that is slain with the sword in the open fields, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. And for an unclean person they shall take of the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sin, and running water shall be put thereto in a vessel. And a clean person shall take hyssop, and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it upon the tent, and upon all the vessels, and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that touched a bone, or one slain, or one dead, or grave. And the clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall purify himself, and wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at even. But the man that shall be unclean, and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from among the congregation, because he hath defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water of separation hath not been sprinkled upon him, he is unclean. And it shall be a perpetual statute unto them, that he that sprinkleth the water of separation shall wash his clothes, and he that toucheth the water of separation shall be unclean until even. And whatsoever the unclean person toucheth shall be unclean, and the soul that toucheth it shall be unclean until even. Summarizing Numbers chapter 19, God tells Moses to take a red female cow without blemish that has never been yoked to be slaughtered before Eleazar, who's Aaron's son. Eleazar shall sprinkle the cow's blood before the tabernacle of the congregation 7 times. In verse 5, she shall be burned. The priest will throw cedar wood, hyssop, scarlet in with the burning cow. Verse 7, the priest shall wash his clothes, bathe, and be considered unclean until the evening. This also applies to the person who burned the cow. In verse 9, a clean man should gather the ashes and save them for a water separation ritual intended to purify from sin. Verse 10, the person who gathers the ashes should wash his clothes and would be considered unclean until the evening. This is a permanent ordinance that includes visitors. Then in verse 11, this is a new topic or a new a new topic. So, touching the body of the dead makes a person unclean for 7 days. The person who is unclean will purify himself on the 3rd day. Failure to do so will nullify the clean status that he would be able to receive on day 7. If he doesn't purify himself after touching a dead body, his soul will be cut off from Israel. Verse 14. When a man dies in a tent, everyone that comes into the tent or is in it is unclean. So if someone's in the tent when someone's died, if someone is in a tent when another person dies, that person is also considered unclean, and that would apply to someone also who's entered the tent. And so this is for 7 days. So every open and uncovered vessel, right here in verse 15, that has no cover fastened on it, is considered unclean. Verse 16. This specifies if someone is killed by a sword in an open field, a dead body, a bone of a man, or a grave should be considered unclean for 7 days. Verse 17. A clean person should take the cow's ashes of purification with running water, dip hyssop in it, and sprinkle it on the tent, the vessels, and people who were there on the 3rd and 7th days, this person that touched a bone or slain or dead or a grave. So those ashes are now going to be used for this purification ritual for people who have touched a dead body or a bone, slain, dead. Verse 19. So the sprinkler should purify himself along with the unclean on the 7th day. And so the person who sprinkles this water should wash his clothes and is considered unclean until the evening. Verse 20, God repeats that the unclean man who refuses to purify himself will be cut off from his people. Verse 22, whatever an unclean person touches is unclean. The person who touches what is unclean, the person who touches what the unclean person touched will be considered unclean until that evening. So that's all for Numbers 19, just outlining a ritual for touching the dead. Thank you for watching. The next upload will be Numbers 20.